In Topic 7, we're going to talk about the conversion of Europe. We've talked about Europe before, but we're going to go a bit more in depth here and look at some of the historical forces and some of the historical figures that were paramount in converting Europe to Christianity. Basically, what's going on in history at this time is the Roman Empire falls around the year 476. When it falls, there is an institution in place that is going to fill the power gap, and that's the Roman Catholic Church. The church has already set itself up, as we've seen on Roman structures, on governmental structures, etc. So when the Roman Empire falls, when the Roman government falls, the simplest thing is for the church to come in and replace it. What's also going on is, as the Roman Empire is falling, Christianity is moving north into the British Isles. We've talked about this a bit with Ireland, but what happens in the British Isles is the type of Christianity that comes about is this very strange syncretistic mix of pagan ideas, Celtic ideas, and Christianity or Catholicism. So what you have in Europe after the fall of the Roman Empire is you have this strange mix in the British Isles, believe it or not, of Arianism, that heresy from Arius, paganism, and then just general superstition. Arius was the individual who said there was a time when Jesus was not. Now, we have no idea how Arianism got all the way up to the British Isles, but it did, and the type of Christianity that started to form in Europe was a Christianity that was fairly loyal to this heresy known as Arianism. And the vast majority of Christians were uneducated in the British Isles. They didn't know a lot about the faith. They had not been trained. So all kinds of weird things were happening in the British Isles when it comes to the type of Christianity, or Christianities, I should say, that existed after the fall of Rome. So what the Roman Catholic Church realized is we need a strategy to go to the people of Europe, all the way up through the British Isles, through the United Kingdom, and we need to evangelize it. We need to fix these problems that are there, because if we don't fix them now, they're going to become more and more and more of a problem later on. So the strategy that the church employs is convert the leaders, and then the rest will follow. And this, in a sense, goes all the way back to Constantine, of if the leader, in Constantine's case, a Roman emperor, converts, well, then that means the entire empire is going to convert, or it means that Christianity is eventually going to become the official religion. So when evangelists move up into the European territories, for instance, when they go to the Frankish territories, what they do is they pinpoint who are the leaders, and they go and try to convince the leaders to become Christians. So there's this example of Remigius going and converting Clovis in the Frankish territories, and Clovis is the leader there. It's very simple. He converts. His family converts with him, and then all of these people, thousands upon thousands of people, under his rule and reign, also convert to Christianity. Now, one of the strange things is that in the case of Clovis and in the case of many of these other leaders, it's really the wife who converts first, and then the wife convinces the husband to convert. So in the case of Clovis, Clotilda converts first, and then convinces her husband to convert, and then this converts Clovis's area where he rules, and then all of these people under him uh, also convert to Christianity, because if their leaders become Christian, they want to become Christian. Now, of course, there's the question here of just how Christian are these people once they convert. But this is the basic strategy. You go to the rulers, convert them, and as I said, ironically, in a lot of these cases, it's the wife of the ruler who first buys into Christianity and helps to convert the husband to Christianity. The other thing that the church focused on were cities, urban centers. Now, this goes back all the way into the New Testament tradition of Paul, who based his operations out of cities. So, what a lot of these early Christian missionaries would do is they would go into the cities, use the cities as bases of operation, and from the cities they would go out to the countryside to convert people in the countryside. And again, this is a similar strategy that was used by Paul in the New Testament. Well, what this means is that bishops, who often resided in cities, the bishops were now playing the roles of former Roman provincial governors. And as I said, why everything didn't fall apart after the fall of Rome is because the Roman Catholic Church was there with its own system based on the Roman governmental system, and it was able to keep things together. In fact, even today, in the Roman Catholic Church, you have bishops who are the heads of dioceses. Dioceses are particular geographical areas, and inside of those dioceses, there are priests, there are deacons, there are churches. So, for instance, today, there is the bishop or archbishop of Hartford, Connecticut, and Hartford, Connecticut is a diocese under which a lot of churches, priests, etc., all the way down to New Haven, Connecticut, are in this diocese. But diocese goes back to this period of time, and diocese is actually a Roman word, and it used to be associated with Roman provincial governors. So a governor ruled over a diocese. Well, now bishops have a diocese, and they rule over a certain geographical area. So what's about to happen here, and it shouldn't be surprising, is once again, the church is going to be stuck in this tension between civil and religious functions. And after the fall of Rome, the church is going to have to take on a lot more of these civil functions. In fact, bishops in dioceses start having to resolve regional matters, and that includes legal matters, etc. They're going to start doing the things that Roman governors used to do. Well, there are two churches, the Anglo-Saxon churches and the Irish churches, that are worth talking about when we talk about converting Europe. If we're looking at this period of early medieval Christianity, and part of this I've already pointed out, but let me point it out again, is as the Roman Empire fell, this meant that the church in Rome, the church in Italy, as we would call today, did not have enough power, enough hold over Christians in the British Isles, Ireland, Scotland, etc. So what happened as the empire was falling apart is that paganism reverted, people reverted to paganism very, very strongly in what we today would call the United Kingdom. So it wasn't possible to, basically as the Roman Empire was falling apart, let's put it this way, Christianity was falling apart throughout Europe. And what you have up in the United Kingdom or the British Isles is you have this mix of Angles, Saxons, Danes, Jutes, Celts, and the Vikings. In fact, if you look at the city of York in England, that is a Viking town. And so all of these Christians realize, well, we have to go back and evangelize the British Isles. This, again, as I pointed out, it's getting out of hand. And before everyone just reverts back to paganism and gives up on Christianity, we need to do something about this. So after the fall of Rome, Christianity will return, so to speak, to the Roman Empire especially under the Pope Gregory I. And again, his years are 590 to 604. Now, we don't know if this story is actually true. It may be apocryphal, but when Pope Gregory is setting up his missionary goals, he's told, supposedly, by missionaries that have gone to the British Isles, that there are these fair-skinned, blonde people called Angles up in the British Isles. Well, Gregory, according to legend, says they are angels, not Angles, and he takes this as sort of this spiritual, religious sign that he needs to get missionaries up into the British Isles in order to convert them or reconvert them to Christianity. Not perhaps the highest point in church history, but supposedly Pope Gregory, purchased a number of the Angles, of the Anglo-Saxons, as slaves, and he brought them back to Rome as missionaries to train them in order to go back to their own people and convert them. This is a very, very strange practice, especially if he purchased them as slaves in order to do this. But what Pope Gregory is getting at here is how to go about the process of converting people to Christianity. And so what he's saying is if you want to convert people, you need to understand their culture. And what better way to convert people than to use that culture's own people to convert others to the faith? So Gregory sends Augustine of Canterbury. This is not Augustine of Hippo, this is Augustine of Canterbury, in the year 597 to convert and reconvert the British Isles. This is why today, if you're part of the Church of England, this is why the city of Canterbury is so important, and this is the Canterbury, of course, that's discussed in Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. So Augustine of Canterbury is sent to convert these Angles and others to Christianity or back to Christianity. Well, just like in the Frankish territories, Augustine follows the principle of if I convert the head of the monarchy, then everybody else will fall in line. So he goes to Ethelbert and converts him, baptizes him. Again, here we have an instance where what actually happened is the wife Bertha converts first, then convinces her husband to do this. Once Ethelbert and Bertha convert, this means that Augustine now has the freedom to move around the British Isles and spread Christianity as he pleases because he has the blessing of Ethelbert and Bertha. While Augustine is converting what we would basically today consider England, things are also going on in the Irish Church. The Irish Church is rapidly expanding. Remember, it has that old Celtic independent streak, and this comes from its Ireland's tribal structure, its old clan structure. And even though it is part of the Roman Catholic Church, it has these fiercely individualistic abbots, and individualism is very, very prevalent in the Irish Church. And it goes back into Irish history and Irish culture and all these sorts of things. Well, something very strange happens while the Irish Church is expanding, while Christianity is spreading in England under Augustine and later others. This question comes up, and the question is, when should we celebrate Easter? It's probably somewhat shocking to people to learn that not all Christians were celebrating Easter at this time on the same exact day and date. In fact, the Venerable Bede, in his Ecclesiastical History of the English People, he's perplexed at why the Irish, whom he attacks for just simply being morons, for being stupid, he's perplexed as to why the Irish can't get in line and celebrate Easter like on the same day and date like those who are in the city of Rome. Well, this becomes such a problem that the Synod of Whitby is called in 664 to settle when will the Roman Catholic Church, all of the churches that belong to Roman Catholicism at this point, when will they celebrate Easter? And part of what's going on here is, again, this is Rome asserting its authority again, because it's saying even these far-flung dioceses, all the way up in Ireland, have to conform to the certain customs of Rome. If Rome celebrates Easter on this day and date, then yes, you too up in Ireland have to celebrate Easter on this day and date. This is settled at Whitby, and this is why today, wherever you go in the Roman Catholic Church, all Roman Catholic churches throughout the world celebrate feast days like Easter, very important calendrical days in the church calendar, on the same exact days and dates. Not all Christians celebrate Easter even today on the same day and date. Orthodox Christians usually celebrate Easter a week later than Western Christians out of the Latin tradition. But what's starting to happen here with the Synod of Whitby and all of this evangelization is the question about local customs and local culture is coming up. Is it okay for certain churches to have their own local customs and include that in this larger thing known as Catholicism, or not? Well, the answer to that is actually yes and no. It depends on the custom. In some cases, yes, it's totally fine. In some cases, no, it's not. So what the Synod of Whitby said is, in the case of Easter, no, it's not okay for you to have your own local custom when it comes to Easter. You're going to celebrate Easter when the Church of Rome or other churches celebrate Easter. But even today, you will see this if you travel throughout the world and go to different Catholic churches, that there are some Catholic churches that have their own local customs fused with Roman Catholicism. And the Catholic Church is okay with that in certain cases, and in other cases it's not okay with it. Well, a couple other things here that are important, some other issues that are related to evangelization. Evangelization always brings up issues of enculturation, assimilation, and accommodation. Whether you're Protestant, whether you're Catholic, these are things that missionaries constantly have to wrestle with. And essentially what happens if you start taking Christianity out into the world is you have to ask yourselves, do you destroy what is already there? In other words, just to give a more modern example of this, when Christian missionaries went to Africa, or when the Puritans came over to the New World up here in New England, and you encounter either sort of the tribal customs of the Africans or you encounter the customs of Native Americans, do you say, okay, you can't keep any of the things that makes you African or any of the things that make you Native American? And oftentimes, unfortunately, in Christian history, what it meant to become a Christian was to give up your previous culture. In other words, with the Puritans, it meant if you're a Native American, you stop being Native American and become European and become de facto white because you converted to Christianity. And this happened as well in Africa and many other places throughout the world. Hopefully, and sometimes this happens, sometimes it didn't, hopefully you strike a balance with this and you say, no, you don't destroy everything that's there. That's ridiculous. Another question that popped up in this period is, do you replace the pagan objects that you find with Christian ones? And again, you see a lot of this, especially in Roman Catholicism, where when the Catholic Church entered certain areas, that's exactly what it did, is it simply took pagan statues of gods and goddesses and replaced them with images of the apostles or of Jesus or of Mary. Gregory Pope Gregory tried to have a balance with all of this. That yes, there are some things you can keep, but on the other hand, there are some things that need to be thrown out. And again, this goes back to these issues of acculturation, assimilation, and accommodation. How much can you accommodate? How much should you make converts assimilate? But in a letter that Gregory the Great wrote to Mellitus in France in 601, he told Mellitus to Catholicize the pagan. Now that means a couple of things. Yes, it means convert them, but it also means to take what they already have and see if you can work with it. And this is a big principle even today in Catholicism, is that anything within reason can be Catholicized and used for the good of the church. So you don't have to simply walk in and just say, okay, we have to start over and throw all of your stuff out. And so the term for that is to Catholicize the pagan, is to make what's pagan Catholic. But in the process of that, you keep what is good from it. Well, while all of this is going on, Islam is on the rise. And Islam is going to continue from here on out to be a bit of a thorn in the flesh to Roman Catholicism, to the Eastern churches as well. And Roman Catholicism and the Eastern churches are going to end up from here on out being a thorn in the flesh of Islam. Their histories here are going to be intertwined from here on out. Very, very briefly, with Islam's rise, their missionary activity had to be rethought because Islam is also a missionary religion. Muhammad's years, as far as we can tell, are about 570 to 632. Muhammad was an absolutely brilliant strategist and thinker. And within about 100 years from Muhammad, from his death on, within about 100 years, Islam spreads so rapidly that it takes over the bottom part of the old Roman Empire. And this is very, very problematic because that used to be Christian territory. The individual who comes to the rescue is a man we're going to talk about in the next lecture. The man who helps out is Charles Martel. Charles is his name. Martel is a title meaning the hammer. He is Charlemagne's grandfather. Charles Martel, and then the line of Charlemagne, is really going to protect the church from the Islamic tidal wave that is occurring and keeps reoccurring. This is also going to affect the relationship of church and state, as we'll see in the next lecture. But, just to preview some of this for you, with the rise of Islam, Roman Christianity is going to lose all of its ties to the Greek East. It's also going to lose all of its ties to churches in the Middle East, in North Africa, in Spain and Portugal, all of these territories that were part of the former Roman Empire. And unfortunately, what's going to happen, as we'll see, is this is going to all end up culminating with something called the Crusades.